You are now listening to theGrio's Black Podcast Network, Black Culture Amplified.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Writing Black. I'm your host, Maiysha Kia, lifestyle editor here at theGrio. And today we have with us a delicious guest. That's what I'm going to say, a delicious guest. You may know her best from her Slutty Vegan empire, but she's also a two-time author with a new book out. I Hope You Fail. That's right. Pinky Cole is with us here today on theGrio. Welcome, Pinky, to Writing Black.
Thank you for having me. Excited to chat and lock in.
Listen, I'm so excited too because, listen, I've had a lot of haters in my time. Okay, maybe not a lot. That might be giving myself too much credit. I've definitely had some. I'm sure I've had at least one or two. None of them has ever had the nerve to straight out tell me that they hope I fail. I do think it's worth noting before we go any further. There is a subtitle on this book. It's really small print. 10 hater statements holding you back from getting everything you want. And I'm sure those of us who have been following your career for the last, let's say, 5 years or so, have wondered, how have you gotten everything you want? How has Pinky Cole done it? How are slutty vegan restaurants like popping up all over the country? And this book is giving a little insight to why. So let's talk about why this book right now.
The timing was everything, right? So like, if you know anything about my story, I have been through a lot. My father did 22 years in prison. I had a business before that caught on fire and I lost everything. My car got repoed. I got kicked out of my apartment. I went through enough bad relationships to write a whole nother book about it, right?
Girl.
I've lost friendships along the way, even more failed businesses. But then on the flip side, there's so many great things that happened for me. I've been able to start businesses. I created several multi-million dollar companies. I've gotten really, really good relationships along the way. And I did a whole lot in 5 years. So what I realized, a part of the reason why all of these great things happened for me was because I had to go through these bad things, right? And whether it was me telling myself that it won't work or somebody else, it really built up the armor that I needed to be able to go out in the world and be great. So when I decided to write this book, I'm like, you know what? I need to help people re-engineer when bad things happen, right?
They tell us there's a blueprint and a formula to being successful and thriving in life. They tell us that growing up the wrong way, living in the wrong neighborhood, having the wrong parents, and making the wrong choices won't get us to where we want to be. And we actually have the nerve to believe that shit. But what if I told you they were wrong? What if I told you that someone from your neighborhood with a similar upbringing, with your credit score, and with your criminal record actually can make it? What if I told you, if you're willing to shift your mindset, every obstacle, wrong decision, and fuck up in your life has prepared you to have everything you want? If I told you the bullshit was the key to your destiny, would you believe me?
Like when your money runs out, like what do you do and how do you navigate so that better things can happen? Because we always look back in situations and say, you know what, I'm glad that happened. Like I learned a lesson from that. And if this wouldn't have happened, then the outcome wouldn't be this. And I wanted people to understand how practical you can be about re-engineering your mindset. And then that's how I came up with the book. And I'm so happy that it's doing so well. A lot of people really understand it. Like, okay, we're not telling you to fail, but it's really just a way to recreate a foundation on how to succeed by way of the failure.
Well, it's also very true to the Pinky Cole brand. I mean, Slutty Vegan. I remember when that name dropped, it was like, oh, So it is in line with with the more provocateur side of your personality, I assume. I love the title. I think it's great. I think it's also, I think this is a book that I don't know if this is the book people expected you necessarily to write about your journey. I guess people who know you maybe totally expected it. But having the journey that you've had, I know everybody's like, well, what did you do? What are the keys? And this is really that manual, but it's framed in a way that I think is really refreshing. I had the pleasure of actually listening to the book. So, I started actually reading it, but because like you, I am a multitasking woman, I was like, you know what? There's a book, and I'm so glad I listened to you because I think as somebody who didn't know you personally, it was so cool to like just hear you tell your story and to really, there's so much warmth, there's so much guidance here, there's so much real talk. I think that's like very refreshing
Thank
here.
you.
So in the framing of this book, as you kind of approached writing it, and you're, sitting down with publishers, and obviously there's a lot of hands in making any book, getting any book from the brain to the page. Was it you who said, I have this idea, like I want them, or was this a process of like kind of teasing it out? I mean, we're a podcast about writing, so we always like to know, like, how did the sausage get made here?
So it was actually me, and it was a little bit more extreme than what it is now. I wanted the book to be upside down when you read it. So like when you're looking at it from the outside in, the book looks like it's upside down, like it was faulty. And then the publisher was like, okay, we like that, but that's a little extreme, next level. I'm like, okay, cool, I'll concede. However, I knew that I needed to slap people in the face with the information. And I did the same thing with Slutty Vegan. Like, Slutty Vegan is not what you think. When you think about the brand, yes, we have like racy names that are associated to, the food, like the one night stand and the sloppy toppy and the menage a trois. But then when you really dissect the business, it doesn't have anything to do with sex. It's just a way to like lock people in, and then once you can get their attention, it's sexy, like it's that draw, and once you can get their attention, then you can educate them on whatever it is that you want. And that's exactly what I wanted to do with the book, because I'm like, listen, people don't even want to read these days. So if I can get you to pay attention to want to read something, it got to be worth your while to want to turn the page or at least listen to what I have to say. So when people start reading the book, they can understand that they can apply these everyday resources and information to what they're going through on a day-to-day basis. For example, one of the chapters is, I hope he cheats on you. Now, who would put that in a book, right? But we've all been in relationships. So whether you're a man or a woman, you can relate to the fact that I'm sure at some point something may have failed in the relationship. It didn't work out, but it made you so much better. It taught you about love. It taught you about what you wanted. It taught you about what you didn't want. So when you got into your new relationship, you're like, you know what? I'm an expert. I've been here. I've done that. I'm going to do things differently. And when you think about things like that, it'll transform how you feel about love, how you feel about respect. But you needed to go through some speed bumps to really get there. So the book is really showing you that, okay, all right, here we are. We're not going to marinate in this moment, but we're going to take it to the next level and figure out how we can learn the lesson in all of this. And my publishers was like, we love it. Let's do it. This is going to be a hit. So I've been excited about it since the beginning. And then the response has just been out of this world. So I'm happy about that.
Listen, I that was a chapter that I definitely found myself testifying. I was like, yes.
Good.
Because you never think at the time, I'm going to be so thankful that I feel so betrayed right now. I mean, and it's full of these life lessons. And, I ask this question almost every podcast of all of our writers. I do think it's important because as they say, there is a book for everybody, right? People may not want to read all the time, but there is really a book for everybody. And so I always ask our authors, who did you write this book for? Who did you have in mind when you were writing this book?
Myself.
The book you wish you had, right?
Yeah. When I wrote this book, I was thinking about all of my experiences. So this isn't the book that's like, okay, you need to do this because I went through it and I no longer deal with these things. I deal with stuff every single day. I got speed bumps every day. I have hard times every single day. Yeah, you see the lights and the accolades and the accomplishments, but I'm still a work in progress. And I am still on the journey to figure life out. So when I wrote this, I'm like, okay, I'm showing you that I'm not perfect. And you don't have to be perfect either. But we all go through stuff. And in this stuff, we can walk through this journey together. So I'm literally using the things that I've been through. Like I said, my dad getting arrested the day that I was born, right? And being sentenced to all that time. Me getting kicked out of high school and realizing that that was a bozo decision, but I needed that to happen because it allowed me to like move and go to Clark Atlanta University and like, all the trauma that I needed to unlock to be able to heal, to become the woman that I am today. Like I'm really talking some real stuff that's very vulnerable and intimate about my story. So I wanted people to hear about that. Yes, I could talk about business all day long and how I started Slutty Vegan and like in order to have a successful restaurant, this is what you do. But I'm still trying to figure out how to continue to have a successful restaurant, right? But I wanted people to know that I'm on this journey with them, and I'm going to use my personal experiences to share those things so that as people ride this wave with me, they know like I have been on every single level with Pinky Cole, and I'm going to support her no matter what, because she's going through what I've been through, or she went through what I'm going through, and they don't feel like somebody is just telling them what to do, rather than showing them like, this is how we get through this together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, there's so much here, and I want to unpack as much of it as we can. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with more Pinky Cole and more Writing Black.
Y'all, come look at what Michael Harriot just posted.
Black Twitter, come get your mans.
It's his podcast episodes for me.
I was today years old when I found out Michael Harriot had a podcast. Subscribed.
I'm world famous white peopleologist Michael Harriot, and this is theGrio Daily.
That's right, the Black Twitter King has a podcast, theGrio Daily with Michael Harriot, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the Grio Black Podcast Network, and accessible wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
And we're back with Pinky Cole. Her new book, I Hope You Fail, is really a must read, I think. You know, I know that this is the book that, you know, other entrepreneurs will be gravitating towards, you know, due to your stratospheric success, Pinky. And, you know, but I'm going to say, as a non-entrepreneur, at least at this juncture in my life, I caught a lot of like really like resonant personal lessons. I think, you know, you were just touching on how, you know, these major setbacks that we experience, sometimes we really get caught up in them. Like, you know, we get kind of in the weeds, we get in the cyclone even of the like spiraling about the thing that happened that we couldn't let go. And so much of this book is about processing pain and making it constructive. And again, I don't know if that's what people expected from this book. And I found it really affirming and lovely. And, you know, even as somebody who's maybe further along the line in age than you, I felt like there were a lot of lessons here about the ways that we kind of trip ourselves up. One of the things I think you and I have in common that I really loved, I have this thing that I always say all the time, the power of the pivot. And you talk a lot about, yes, I'm always like, it's all about the power of the pivot. You know, like you got to, you know, figure out what that power is. Tell me about what pivoting means to you, because it's a huge part of your story and it's a huge part of this book.
Pivoting is everything. I'm a master pivoter, right? That's the thing. And I learned how to be a master pivoter in the pandemic, right? I understood that in order, you got to be a chameleon. Like when you go through stuff and you have to learn how to process pain, you have to sometimes reroute your positioning in whatever situation that you're in, right? So like if something is not going the way that I wanted to, I'm like, okay, all right, let me shift, let me remix it, let me do something a little bit different. And if that doesn't work, okay, let me slide again, let me do something different. And that is the beauty of not just being an entrepreneur, but somebody who's climbing the corporate ladder, somebody who is trying to unlock their purpose in life. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to just understand how to pivot. Like, yeah. You know, when we talk about entrepreneurship, like that is like a cheeky word, pivot, but it's not just entrepreneurs that can pivot in life. You can pivot in relationships. You can pivot as a parent. You can pivot as somebody who is the head of a multi-million-dollar company. Like there's so many things that you can do as you're on your journey to pivot. And my pivot came from like losing everything. I talk a lot about in my story how my wages got garnished. I remember one day I lost $17,000 and I'm like, somebody took my money out of my account. Well, it was the state.
Yep. They will do that.
Yeah. And I had to learn how to pivot, right? And a part of that pivot was getting a different accountant that could understand what I needed to be able to recoup my money and do the things that I needed to do, right? Learning how to pivot was in the pandemic when, you know, I had my business and we couldn't serve to people just regularly. We're like, all right, we got to do online ordering. Right? And the decline of the vegan market, I'm like, okay, we got to ramp up the marketing so that people can still love the business. So pivoting is what I do. And I'm telling people in the book, you said it, you put the nail in the coffin. You have to know how to process pain. And failing is not failing at all, which is like the moral to the story. It is finding aspiration in the losses. Fail.
There's going to come a time early in your entrepreneurial journey when all is right with the world, things are steady, you're making solid progress, and then bam, some shit comes out of nowhere and throws you off. Some are nodding their heads right now because they're remembering this moment and all it cost them. Others have no idea what we're talking about yet. And I say that not as shade, but as sound advice. Shit is going to go left, and there's not much you can do about it. I want to be clear here and make sure that you know that I'm not talking about a plateau. Those are definitely going to happen in the life of your business. A plateau is when you hit a rut. It can be due to changes in the economy and people not spending like they used to. Plateaus can be caused by a similar business opening and people flocking to check out that shiny new thing. And they can be the result of whatever you've implemented just not working anymore. That's possible too.
So you find the aspiration in the things that you felt like you've lost, the things that aren't working for you. And then when you look up and you realize, okay, like this was intentional for me. It might not have felt good in that moment, but why is this happening for me? Because I don't think things happen to us. It happens for us. Mm-hmm. And when they happen for us, it's really for our own good, even if you don't feel it in the moment. Mm-hmm. Because there's been plenty of times where I've had people not believe in me that loved me, that when I look back, I'm like, you know what? I needed them to not believe in what I had going on, because that's what it did. It put a battery in my back. It made me want to work harder. It made me not want to get comfortable. And although that might sound counterproductive, but the reality of it is it really gave me the resilience that I needed to not give up, because I knew that there was somebody in the world that didn't think that I was going to win, and it made my inner strength stronger. So for the people who are reading this, whether they are an entrepreneur, whether they are a leader in the corporate environment, whether they're somebody that's trying to figure their life out or their business, there is something in there for them. This is not just an entrepreneur book about business. This ain't that. And if that's what you want, I'll give you that on the third book. But this book is about how to better navigate through life by just shifting the way that you think.
Yeah, and there's some powerful lessons in here. And I think you're a refreshing voice to be giving them. Thank you. Because another one of the things that really came up for me, whether you're talking about Brene Brown, my friend Tarana Burke, like this, a lot of people talk about shame. And I think that you do something where you talk about shame in this book in a way that I found so constructive. Because you really kind of broke down, at least for you, the differences between shame and guilt, and like how, when I talked about that cyclone that a lot of us get caught in, and I really want to, hammer down on this a little bit for the podcast, because I think a lot of writers listen to this podcast, a lot of, not just readers, but writers. And as you know now from having written 2 books, that cyclone, I think for writers, it's one of those things that a lot of us get caught in. We get caught in the weeds. We get caught in the like, woulda, shoulda, couldas of everything, because we're overthinkers. Can you break down just a little bit for our audience how you differentiate shame and guilt?
It's interesting. So when we talk about shame and guilt, there's a fine line. I tell people all the time, like, either you're going to sit in this thing or you're going to ride this thing out and rise above. When all of the bad things happen to me, I'm like, it don't get no worse than this. Right? So I can either like rise above the feelings that I feel, or I can just sit in it and be guilty and just be a victim, right? But how long are you going to be a victim in the painful processes that you're going through, right? Because it doesn't help you. Like it doesn't get better. Yes, take your moment to cry and to feel sad. I'm not saying that, right? But if you're going to sit in it for a second, okay? Like, you got to feel that emotion, because the first thing in rising above what you're going through is just acknowledging that pain. And I learned that working on a healing show, right? You got to acknowledge what it is that you feel. And that's okay. You have to do that. But once you acknowledge what you feel, understand what role you played in the breakdown. And when you understand what role you played in the breakdown, okay, what is the solution? How am I going to get past this? And not just like be victimizing yourself and just staying in that moment. Because guess what starts happening when you start wallowing in it, when you start feeling sorry for yourself? How can you get past that? Like, how can you get back to a place where you're like, okay, you know what? Let me refresh, restart. But it's all about this right here. I was telling a friend the other day, Maiysha, when you take a journey, say it's 100 miles on the journey, right? And you're already 90% there. Then you go through some speed bumps, right? There's some hard times. There's some bad weather in those speed bumps. And then you just wake up one day and you're like, you know what? I don't want to drive no more. I got 10 miles left, but I don't want to do this no more. Like, you already done gave up. You ain't even tried. And you allowed yourself to sit in something that you could have gotten out of because you were almost there. You got to learn how to stop doing that, because when you do that, it allows you to, when you get to a place where you can say, you know what, I feel this, it hurts, it does not feel good, but I know when I get to my destination, I'll understand why I had to go through the stuff without remaining in that guilt, without remaining in that shame, and just looking back and say, you know what, thank you, universe, thank you, God, because of this situation, I've gotten so much better. I've gotten so much wiser. I've become an expert, and now I can share my testimony.
I love it. You know, I want to talk about another part of guilt that you touch on in the book, but we're going to do it in one more second. We're going to be right back with more Writing Black and more Pinky Cole.
I'm Torre. Join us for crazy true stories about stars who I really hung out with, like Snoop, Jay-Z, Prince, Kanye, and the time I got kidnapped by Suge Knight. Don't miss my animated series, Star Stories with Torre, from the Grio Black Podcast Network.
We're back with Pinky Cole, whose new book, I Hope You Fail, is out. And, you know, listen, this, I think, is such a great book for so many people and for so many reasons, particularly, we're moving into like New Year, New You season where, people are always looking for ways to reinvent themselves, to start over, to reimagine things. One of the things you touch on, we were just talking about shame and guilt, and you touch on in this book, and I'm going to sidebar, and I hope it's not too personal. I think it's remarkable that you wrote this book while pregnant. And,
very pregnant. About 8 months pregnant, actually, now.
I was say still pregnant, also pregnant right now. So the multitasking of getting this, doing what you do, I think is such a great example to anybody who thinks I'm just too busy. I can't do it. I just can't do it all. One of the things you talk a lot about in this book is getting help where you need it and being able to accept help, which I think a lot of us, particularly women, sometimes I think we struggle with this idea that we have to do everything. We have to do everything. We have to be everything. We have to be everywhere. As you point out in the book, this is not something that is necessarily projected onto men. Although there are definitely some progressive men who accept that. But in the doing everything of it all, I mean, you're already talking about a third book. You're talking about, new, I'm sure, new franchises, new businesses, all these kind of things. So when it comes to the creative process, because all of it's creative process, even, entrepreneurship is a creative process, I think. Where does the getting help come in for you? Like, how do you ask for it? How do you get the feedback that you need, the trusted feedback that you need? Because I think a lot of us also struggle with that.
It's interesting because for a very long time, I would not ask for help. I felt like I had to do everything by myself. I felt like it wasn't going to get done unless Pinky did it. But I also had to learn how to release control. So my mental state of mind would be in a place where I can continue to create and be an artist, because that's what I love to do, right? So when we talk about even business, like, I don't want to hear about numbers all day. Like, that's just not my ministry. Like, I put people in position to do those things. Right. I want to be able to use my creative genius to be able to elevate my consciousness and the consciousness of people around me. So yes, I have a lot. I've been pregnant for the last 4 years, from 2020, 21, 22, 23, and still pregnant.
Like you and Rihanna, just pregnant. Okay.
Exactly, right?
But still putting stuff out into the world,
Still, right? And between being a mom, I just got married in June. Yeah. Right?
Congratulations.
Books, thank you. Between opening locations and being a CEO and being all of these things to everybody else, I really had to sit back and identify the fact that it's okay for people to love on you, to support you, right? Because it gives me the ability to clear my headspace so that I can be Pinky Cole to not only my children, right, but to the world. And it's okay to ask for help. That does not mean that you're weak, right? It does not mean that you're incapable. Like, I want to be able to show up and have a smile on my face genuinely, not because I'm trying to make it look good for other people, but in order for me to be Superwoman, I'm going to need my soldiers around me to support me and making sure that happens. But that also means making sure that you have the right people around you. Right? It's not enough to have just dead batteries around you. You got to have people that want to plug in on you, right? And become an asset and not a liability. So I've been more intentional about making sure that the energy that I consume is the right energy, the energy that's going to get me excited about life, that's going to continue to motivate me to be a multitasker and do all the things that I'm doing.
When I came up with the idea for Slutty Vegan, I was in a relationship. I remember the day so vividly. I leaned over and asked if he thought it would be a good idea. Yeah, I guess so, was his response. He wasn't really invested in my dream, and he really didn't care. But when the brand took off, he sought to take ownership of my idea. He tried to sue me. I wish I could say I wasn't surprised, but I was. My surprise and disappointment only sought to reveal a truth I didn't want to admit. He and I may have been playing the same game, but we were never on the same team. And there is no worse feeling than being in competition with the person who's lying next to you.
That might mean that you might have to remove some family members. You might have to remove some relationships that no longer served you and start to incorporate the people who really mean well in your life that don't want nothing from you except for the fact that they want you to win. And that is very important.
It's absolutely vital. And I really want our listeners to hear that. Super women get support, y'all. Like,
yes.
The super part is not in doing it solo, and on that note, listen, I have to point out again, this is not your first book. It might be the first book of yours that people read, but if they have not gotten into Eat Plants, Bitch, they should. And I think it really relates to what you were just saying, because one of the things I loved about this book is that, you have this debut cookbook that comes out, has done extremely well. I think introduced people to the fact that veganism can be sexy too, and that they can really play with it and find their favorite flavors in there. But you also drew on relationships and friends to create that book. So can we talk about the function of, I think so often we think either A, we have to do the journey solo, the winning solo, or we get afraid that somehow we're inviting competition into our space when we, reach out for collaboration or whatever. But you really kind of proven, I think, in so many ways. I mean, from what I've read, because I did cover your wedding, even in your marriage, that that's not competition. You know what I mean? That's, tell me a little bit. I called this question in my notes, what about your friends? How does that work?
My favorite friend is my husband.
Mine too.
Right. My favorite friend is my husband. But I've always been a collaborator, right? The only person that I'm competing with is myself. And when I created the cookbook, I wanted to collaborate with other really dope individuals who are moving and shaking in the hospitality field and give them an opportunity to showcase who they are and what they do. And what that did is it really allowed me to continue to build relationships, because how many people really want to loop in at least 25 people into their own cookbook to highlight them, to show them love? People don't really do that, right?
Exactly.
But it's enough for everybody. And as long as you have that giving, caring, collaborative mindset, you're going to always win. I believe a part of the reason why I continue to win is because, I'm able to share the fruits of my labor and not feel like there has to be competition, because when I win, we all win, right? If I bring people up as I rise, everybody receives the benefits. And that's what I've been doing for a very, very long time. So the cookbook was really, really dope. It was my first time publishing a book. And shout out to the people who supported it. A lot of people supported that book. And a lot of people learned that they could eat vegan, even if they didn't want to be vegan. So that was just cool all the way around. And the name, obviously, Eat Plants, Bitch, it just drew you in.
Yes.
But that was kind of like a teaser of who was Pinky Cole? Who is this woman? What does she represent? And how does the food translate to who she is and how she shows up in the world? And that was a precursor to being able to write I Hope You Fail. So I'm happy that I got to collaborate with people. And I'm even more happy that as I evolve on this journey, I get to continue to meet really dope people, not just in the hospitality space, but people in entrepreneurship, people who are just opening up their minds and consciousness to just be better. I like being around people who want to be better. And if you want to be better, let's work together, because that is true collaboration. And to me, beyond money, that is what success is all about.
I mean, that was a word right there. And I love that. I mean, I absolutely love that. It's something that I always love hearing on this podcast. But I can't talk to you also without talking about the fact that you're a marketing genius. Like you just are. You know, like I'm looking at these titles, I'm looking at Slutty Vegan, I'm looking at, and obviously when somebody asks you to write a book like this or somebody picks up this book to read, they're looking for the Pinky Cole secret sauce and not the one that goes on your burgers. Now, I won't ask you specifically what your secret sauce is because I think that is uniquely you, and I'm not even sure you could articulate it for us. But I do think that there's something interesting here in this conversation that I don't typically get to talk about with authors on this podcast, which is the hook. Like I don't think I'm a songwriter, for instance, and we always have to get back to, well, what's the hook? Like, what, give me a good hook. So for you, when you are, whether it's a title, whether it's a new dish that's going on the menu, how does that, there's just an innate cleverness to what you do. And I feel like you've made it part of your brand. Tell me about like the marketing side of all this creativity, because that is really the business of it that makes you such a marketable brand.
It is giving it to you raw, no chaser, no straw. A lot of times, it's the truth. A lot of times we as people fabricate. There's something about reverse psychology that I've been able to use that has afforded me success. It's hitting you raw in the face, requiring you to ask questions and create dialogue. And with that dialogue, you want to know more, right? I'm creating something that makes people want to know more. Yeah. And that is giving it to you raw, no chaser, no straw. When we think about Slutty Vegan, I've merged the two most pleasurable experiences in life, and that's food and that's sex. We all have eaten food, and I mean, we all know how we got here, right? But those are two things that, depending on who's talking about it, will either make you feel comfortable, uncomfortable, or it'll be educational, right? So I'm taking words and phrases and emotions that you have to identify. Is this positive? Is it negative? I don't know, but I want to talk about it. And when I can do
I'm
that,
intrigued.
I'm intrigued. And when you have people intrigued, now you have their ear. And it's just like, oh, okay. Well, she didn't mean what she said that she meant. It actually meant something else. And when you can do that reverse psychology, it really warps people's minds because now they're stuck, but they're stuck for the right reasons. And if you can get people stuck for the right reasons, that is the biggest win. And that is really how I've been doing my marketing. So while people call it like the secret formula to marketing, I just really take things that make people uncomfortable and I add comfortability in it. And you decide whether it's something that you want to talk about, whether it's something you want to be a part of. But then I'm just like, okay, is your mind in the gutter or not? Like, are you thinking about this intellectually or not? Right? And it has worked for me since day one. And that is my marketing style, and I'll never change it. And a part of that is because I've been a television producer for a very long time. I was a producer for the Maury Show.
Listen,
and a whole bunch of other shows. And what I learned is that you have to be able to communicate with people in a way that is going to be striking and not boring. And if you can strike them with your words and your intentions, then they're not changing the channel. So what do I continue to do so that people won't change the channel? Give you racy jargon language and throw it in your face so raw that you have no choice but to lean in. I want people to lean in, and that's what I've been doing.
I mean, you have made veganism not so virtuous, right? And I think like people who are turned off by that, oh, veganism, it's so, you've turned that on its head. I commend you. And I had to ask you about it because it is really, it is a brand and it is absolutely genius. And we are all leaning in. You mentioned earlier that, it's hard to get people to read now. I would counter that. Yes, that is true. People's attention spans feel shorter than ever, but it's also such a great time to be a Black author. There's so many amazing. I mean, I'm blessed because I get to talk to all of you here on this podcast, or as many of you as I can, which, feeds my writer's heart. But I do ask on every podcast, like, who speaks to you? Who do you read? Who inspires you when you are looking for that outlet, or when you are looking for those words of guidance? Who do you read? Who do you like?
Robert Kiyosaki is my favorite author.
Okay. Is this like Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
This is Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay. I thought so. I was like,
what somebody said to me yesterday that my book was for Black 4 Agreements.
oh, I could see that though. I can kind of see that.
And obviously, I've read all of those, right? Like those kind of books that like get me fired up. Think and Grow Rich is one of my favorites.
Okay.
Who else do I? He doesn't have a book, but I actually like to listen to Dame Dash. And the reason why is because he's in your face, no chasing, no straw. And it may either make you feel uncomfortable or you can be like, okay, I get it.
That didn't surprise me for some reason. I was like, I can see it.
Yeah. But, like just being in the company, whether it's a book, I don't know if you saw it, but just recently I did a challenge where it was a book a day. Gary V he's really dope, and I don't know if you understand the style of like the in your face, like very raw. I just read a book not too long ago, Relentless. Have you read Relentless?
I haven't read it yet.
Relentless is a really good book.
All right, I'm gonna have to read it. See, this is why I asked this question.
and then that was one of my latest books. And Relentless, what he talks about is how he's been a coach for athletes. So like Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, and a whole bunch of other people. But you would think that it's a book about like how to lift weights and how to work out. But what he was really talking about is mindset. And how like these people, the Michael Jordans of the world and Kobe Bryant's, like all those people he touched, when everybody else wanted to chill and just like play around, these people were so committed to their craft and winning. And it was a mindset thing, had nothing to do with the fact that they were running and working out. It's because they wanted to win by any means necessary. So I lock in and, it feels good to be able to lock in. And I hope that I end up on people's list.
I was about to say.
Have ended up on mine.
I think you will be in the lexicon now of motivational tomes because this is super relatable. It really is. It's super relatable. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to enjoy it or to get inspired by it. I was definitely inspired. So,
and what
Pinky,
I
hope you fail. I hope you fail.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. You know what's so interesting? A lot of people have been buying the audiobook.
It's a great audiobook. It really is. Everybody, I was saying this before we even got on the air today. I was speaking to our producers. I don't want to listen to everybody read their book, but I loved this one. This one, I heard you. I felt you. I could even hear how, and I hope this is an overstep. I was like, she must be a great mom because I feel motivated. I feel supported. So, congratulations on this book, on the audiobook, on all the new endeavors. I will be holding my breath for a Slutty Vegan to hit to touchdown here in Chicago. And really thank you for appearing with us on Writing Black, because I know that your time is your money, and I really do appreciate you spending some time with us today. So y'all pick up I Hope You Fail by Pinky Cole. Excellent gift to give to people, as is Eat Plants, Bitch. You don't have to become a vegan to enjoy vegan food. And I think this book proves it. Pinky Cole, thank you so much and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Well, I don't know about you, but that was a very refreshing, very fulfilling conversation for me. Can't thank Pinky Cole enough and can't recommend I Hope You Fail enough. I think there's a lot of you out there that are going to benefit from this book, and it's frank talk. What'd you say? No chaser, no straw. I personally loved it. But this is the part of the episode where I recommend a few other things. A little section I like to call My Favorites. And this week, my favorite, aside from Eat Plants, Bitch, is this book by Tiffany Aliche, The Budgetnista, as many of you may know her from social media. Get Good with Money. This book came out a few years ago. This is 10 Simple Steps to Becoming Financially Whole. And just like Pinky, what I love about Tiffany and her style is that, she's speaking as somebody who's been there. She's speaking as somebody who has failed, who has struggled, who has rebuilt her life, who is building it again and again, who is learning over and over. There's some great lessons in this book. And I think, for those of us who are trying to figure out how to get it done without generational wealth on our side, without the infrastructure, without the support, dealing with systemic issues, both she and Pinky do such a great job of pointing out, yes, these are very real factors, and they are they can be very real impediments to our success. But there's a way around and above everything, and a lot of it has to do with your mindset, and a lot of it does have to do with hunkering down and doing the hard stuff, whether it's setting a budget or processing that pain. So, highly recommend both of these books, and I highly recommend that you tune into our entire catalog of Writing Black on the Grio's Black Podcast Network, and that you join us for the next episode. So I will see you then. Thanks so much for joining us for this week's episode of Writing Black. As always, you can find us on the Grio app or wherever you find your podcasts.
I'm political scientist, author, and professor Dr. Christina Greer, and I'm host of The Blackest Questions on the Grio's Black Podcast Network. This person invented ranch dressing around 1950. Who are they?
I have no idea.
This all began as an exclusive Black History trivia party at my home in Harlem with family and friends. And they got so popular, it seemed only right to share the fun with our Grio listeners. Each week, we invite a familiar face on the podcast to play. What was the name of the person who was an enslaved chief cook for George Washington and later ran away to freedom? In 1868, this university was the first in the country to open a medical school that welcomed medical students of all races, genders, and social classes. What university was it?
This is why I like doing stuff with you, because I leave educated. I was not taught this in Alabama public schools.
Question number 3, you ready?
Yes. Let me try to redeem myself.
How did we go from Kwanzaa to these obscure...
sport, darling.
This is like the New York Times crossword from a Monday to a Saturday.
Right or wrong, because all we care about is the journey and having some fun while we do it.
I'm excited and also a little nervous.
Oh, listen, no need to be nervous. And as I tell all of my guests, this is an opportunity for us to educate ourselves, because Black history is American history. So we're just gonna have some fun. Listen, some people get 0 out of 5, some people get 5 out of 5. It doesn't matter. We're just gonna be on a little intellectual journey together.
LaToya Cantrell?
That's right, Mayor LaToya Cantrell.
Hercules Posey.
Born in 1754, and he was a member of the Mount Vernon slave community, widely admired for his culinary skills.
I'm going to guess Afro-punk.
Close. It's Afro Nation. So last year, according to my research, it's Samuel Wilson, aka Falcon.
Wrong. Wrong. I am disputing this.
I'm very, 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 very 99.9999 sure that it is Representative John Lewis, who is also from the state of Alabama. That lets you know, Christina, we got some goodness come out of Alabama.
There is something in the water in Alabama, and you are absolutely correct.
The harder they come.
Close.
Oh, wait. The harder they fall?
That's right. I'm one of those people that just changes one word.
I mean, I know the song too well.
I just don't know nothing today. I'm going to pour myself a little water while you tell me the answer.
The answer is Seneca Village, which began in 1825 with the purchase of land by a trustee of the AME Zion Church.
You know why games like this make me nervous? I don't know if I know enough black. Do I know enough? How black am I? Oh, my Lord, we gonna find out in public.
So give us a follow, subscribe, and join us on The Blackest Questions.